All right, we'll go ahead and get the February 26, 2026 regular meeting of the St. Mary's County Metropolitan Commission. We're going to first get approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second it.
And a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We've got a length of service award for Phil Sears for 15 years. Phil, come on up front and center, my friend.
I try to do my best, Anne Mary. Can we get everybody up? He's a popular man today. Everybody get up there.
Well, squeeze on there.
As long as like that, we want you.
If you're his friends, get up there.
Kylie and Sammy, get up there with him. And you didn't want to. They did. You can all pile in there. Come on, Eric.
He's not gonna start.
Thomas. Yeah, I'm not gonna start. That's a handsome dude. Phil Sears began his career with the Metropolitan Commission on February 2, 2011 as a utilities maintenance specialist. He was promoted to meter technician on September 19, 2011, and on September 13, 2018, he was deservedly promoted to utilities maintenance specialist. Just a year later, on September 20th, 2019, he was again promoted to sewer vacuum truck operator, and on Friday, February 19th, 2021, he was once again promoted to construction inspector and remains in that position today. Through knowledge and experience gained in these prior roles, Phil has translated the distinct priorities of engineering and operations into shared visions and collaborative momentums. Because of this, he is a valued member of our organization. Phil is regularly designated to lead the inspection of important capital projects and is always selected for the ongoing grinder pump replacement project. His serious work ethic and willingness to assist is instrumental in ensuring that all projects conform to specifications and that they operate as designed. As a proud husband and father of two, Phil is the consummate family man. In his off time, he's a sports fanatic who has coached and played both baseball and softball, and while he finds great joy owning and maintaining vintage trucks, what he thoroughly enjoys is quality time with his family. Please join me in congratulating Phil on 15 years of service to Metro.
Meritorious Service Award, St. Mary's County Metropolitan Commission this year recognized Phil Sears for 15 years of service to this commission and the citizens of St. Mary's County. Congratulations. You get a paper award, you get a pin, and you give me the check, right? Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Don't everybody leave.
Everybody stay up there. We got a check we're gonna be giving that you all earned to give to the Veterans Home up in Charlotte Hall.
That's the railroad right here.
So as you're aware, the employees here at Metcom have been celebrating Christmas every year, and as a part of the holiday tradition, we also select a charity to support. Each year, a different charity is chosen from a pool of pre-approved organizations, and once selected, employees begin raising funds by hosting breakfasts, luncheons, ice cream socials, 50-50 raffles, auctions, soup cook-offs, cornhole tournaments, and other events throughout the year. The largest fundraising event occurs at the annual Christmas party, which was held here on December 18th. All donations to charity come directly from employees, either through personal contributions or by participating in various fundraising activities. This year, we are proud to be able to support the Charlotte Hall Veterans Home, a long-term care facility located in Charlotte Hall. The Veterans Home provides needed residential assisted living, rehabilitation, and skilled nursing care for honorably discharged veterans and eligible spouses who need help with daily living due to age or disability. This year, employees were able to raise $2,735 to help support the Veterans Home. Christina Casarella, you're already up there, has presented the honorary token check to the Veterans Home. We also have our board up front who will be providing the real check that can be cashed. With us today is an acting director, and he only wants to be known as acting from here on, Director Mr. Rodney Jones. He's come down to accept this donation on behalf of the Veterans Home. He doesn't have a lot to say, but I wanted to give him the opportunity to address the employees.
The biggest thing I just want to say is just so you recognize it yourself, you guys make such a huge difference at the Veterans Homes, because these types of donations, they go to things that we can't buy through state channels or other channels. And there's a lot of things that they need. It may just be a set of clothing that they need to go somewhere. And we can't buy that through the state revenue. So this allows that, and it makes it more like a home. So thank you so much for all that you've done. This is amazing. And we just can't tell you how much we appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Thank everyone for participating. It's a great Christmas party this year.
We'll put it up in line.
Very good.
But then
Hey, all right, thanks.
Thank you, Don.
Well, that we're all here, huh?
Josh, there's Ralph.
Yeah, we got a second. Laura, we ready to do the proclamation? Yes. All right, moving right along, we've got a couple proclamations today. The first one we'll start with will be National Engineers Week. And Commissioner Ron will read a proclamation.
Whereas National Engineers Week was founded in 1951 by the National Society of Professional Engineers and is more than a week of recognition, it is also a movement to inspire the next generation of innovators, spotlight the impact of our profession, and strengthen connections across our engineering community. Whereas engineers are in the front line of the major technology challenges of our time, rebuilding towns devastated by natural disasters, cleaning up the environment, assuring safe, clean, and efficient source of drinking water, exploring space and oceans, and designing products and systems that will improve our world for the future. The purpose of National Engineers Week is to call attention to the positive contributions that engineers make to our society. The theme for 2026 is Transform Your Future, and it's about celebrating the power of engineering and the people who make it possible. Each year, Engineers Week unites engineers, students, and communities across the nation to celebrate how engineering shapes our world. Now, therefore, we, the Commissioners of the St. Mary's County Metropolitan Commission, do hereby declare the week of February 22nd through 28th, 2026 as National Engineers Week to raise public awareness of engineers' positive contributions to quality of life. We ask parents, teachers, and students to continue to recognize the importance of the technological education and to promote higher levels of math, science, and technology literacy. This date, February 26, 2026, signed by all the commissioners of St. Mary's County Commission.
We have several of our engineering department members here. I'd like them to stand and introduce themselves to you.
go first. I'm Anna Wells. I'm an engineer working with Josh and Chrissy, do development review and capital project management.
Josh Woodburn, also engineer, working underneath Christy and beside Anna, capital projects, project management.
Lauren Goodrich, project coordinator.
Joan Lopez, permit coordinator.
Deborah Blandingham, I kind of support permit coordinator and that kind of thing.
And Chris Desan, and I'm managing the construction and inspection section.
Very good.
Thank you for all the talking.
I'd also like to point out they're a humble group of people. Anna Wells is a professional engineer. She passed her exam. Joshua Woodburn, our most recent professional engineer, passed his exam. Christy Hollander, you know, is a PE, and also myself. So Metcom has the luxury of having 4 professional engineers on their staff.
Great, thank you.
Very good. Thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you.
And behind the scenes, we don't see it, but we act upon it, so thank you.
Thank you all. And we have a second proclamation for National Employee Appreciation Day, which Commissioner Reed is going to read.
Proclamation, whereas the National Employee Appreciation Day is an unofficial national holiday originally established in 1995, which is celebrated annually on the first Friday of March. And Employee Appreciation Day is one of the many opportunities for managers and company leadership to reinforce the importance of their team members. Recognition and appreciation are top drivers of employee morale and satisfaction. It can have a positive influence on everything from recruitment to retention. Having a great relationship with employees is an important aspect of being a board member, manager, or supervisor, and appreciating their efforts can go a long way towards making them feel valued. In fact, employees who have a safe, respectable, and appreciative work environment, and who feel a strong connection to its leadership, are more productive, proactive, and approachable. Metcom employees understand the importance of working together to achieve the goals of the Commission. Your efforts do not go unnoticed, and you deserve our deep gratitude and recognition of your professionalism, dedication, hard work, commitment, and enthusiasm. Your ability to stay focused even in the face of challenges is admirable. This day is intended to remind us that our collective success is a direct result of the outstanding teamwork and collaboration between all levels of staff. The outstanding public services that Metcom provides is a testament to your dedication, expertise, and appreciation of one another. Now, therefore, we, the Commissioners of the St. Mary's County Metropolitan Commission, do hereby recognize March 6th, 2026 as Employee Appreciation Day, and we thank you for consistently going the extra mile and setting a high standard for us all. Dated today, February 26, 2026, and signed by all Commissioners of the St. Mary's County Metropolitan Commission.
All right.
That is the month of March, so we don't meet till the end of March. This is a little bit preemptive, but we'll use that proclamation during our events.
And I appreciate having that day on my birthday. Thank you very much. I'm sure that was intended.
All right, moving right along, I need approval of the regular session meeting minutes from last month, January 22nd, 2026.
I make a motion to approve January 22nd, 2026 meeting minutes.
I have a motion,
I'll second that motion.
and I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? So moved. Did everybody get a chance to look at the consent agenda and the extra added items that Laura sent yesterday?
Yes.
For the invoices for legal services? You guys done it? Get a chance to look at it?
Yes.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
A second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I do have something before we get too far. I just have a question, I guess. Let me look at it real quick and I'll tell you what my question was. I'll come back to you in just a second. I seen at the end of the invoices for Foster Garvey, and maybe I missed this, maybe you can, why don't you tell me, what's the Rogers litigation?
We can't discuss that in open session.
My apologies. If that's a question I can ask later.
You
It is a
Thank you.
question, and it's pretty straightforward.
Awesome. Thank you.
So approving this won't be a big deal. Gotcha.
I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, so moved. We'll go right into new business. Yep, Sean, come on up. You're the first victim on the.
Good afternoon,
Good
Commissioner.
afternoon,
Good to
Sean.
see you as always.
Good to see you as well.
You have an informational memorandum in your packages dated February 19, 2026. I'll do my best to try to summarize all of the highlights. As we do periodically each year, we keep the board updated on Maryland local government investment pool and other post-employment benefits performance. For informational purposes, today I bring to you the 2025 third quarter reviews. Although, if you look in the memorandum, I did a lot of, well, not a lot, but I've referred to it's the second quarter numbers, but I'm also for the third quarter, that was just for some additional information. But as of September 30th, 2025, the Metcom invested funds in the Maryland local government investment pool had a balance of $5,989,444 in the trust account, which is an increase of $64,383 from the previous 2025 second quarter balance, which was $5,925,061. Also, the rate for January 2026 was 3.744%. Metcom has also invested in the Metco Pool OPEB trust account as the commission provides health, prescription, dental, and vision care insurance benefit to eligible retirees, eligible retiree family members, and the family members of deceased employees as a single employer plan. These benefits are referred to as other post-employment benefits, which is OPEB, OPEB stands for that. The trust returned 4.8% for the third quarter, which is really good. As of September the 30th, the market value in the Metco account increased from $10,263,008 to $10,742,493, which is a difference of $479,485. Based on the recent audit of Metcom's financial statement as presented on the board back in December 11th, 2025, planned fiduciary net position as a percentage of the OPEB liability is now 87.24%. For your review, I've included additional portfolio headlights for the 2025 calendar for the third quarter. So without further ado, if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Gentlemen. Thank you, Sean.
Yes, sir.
You the next one, that's the only one you got.
For now. Don't go too far.
Ed, come on up.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. First item up I have for your consideration is the purchase of ferrochloride for the Marley Taylor Water Reclamation Facility. Ferrochloride is an iron salt chemical coagulant for phosphorus removal and wastewater treatment. Ferrochloride, the ferrochloride product, is delivered in bulk to a storage tank at the facility. The Marley Taylor facility began using ferrochloride in 2000 when the biological nutrient removal process upgrade occurred. And that required us to remove nitrogen, remove phosphorus for that upgrade. So that's been in place since 2000. So staff is requesting board approval for the award of to purchase ferrochloride from Chimera Water Solutions Inc. of Lawrence, Kansas, at a cost of $1,109 per dry ton for the base year, with 3 optional 1-year renewal periods. Just as a side note, the current cost of the ferric chloride under our existing contract for the incumbent Chimera is about $1,144 per dry ton. So we are seeing a reduction of a little over 3% for this current contract period. Based on all that information, we could see a potential cost savings of over $23,000 for the initial contract period, and potentially over $93,000 over the full-year period. For the last contract period, we did have a multiple award for the ferric delivery. That was really based on the market volatility concerns we had when we were in the middle of COVID. We were very concerned about the delivery of chemical, so that's why we had the multiple award. Here we are given a single award to Chimera. Also, the Marley Taylor Water Reclamation Facility did meet the nutrient reduction goals set forth by the state in calendar year 2025, and that is the O&M grant that we got here in calendar year 2026. The state does it by calendar year, and we get that the following year. So it's a little confusing. So today we are asking board approval to approve the ferric chloride contract from Chimera Water Solutions of Lawrence, Kansas. And with that, I will answer any questions.
So are quantities we use per year fairly consistent?
It is fairly consistent. I mean, though, it's a fairly static concentration of phosphorus that we get in. It doesn't typically go up and down like nitrogen sometimes does. We create about 4,800 dry tons of sludge a year. Off the top of my head, I don't know the amount of ferric that we use, but typically we get deliveries in about once a month, and the deliveries are about 3,000 gallons.
But from an overall cost perspective per ton, it's not really varying much because of quantities.
No.
So that comes in as a liquid then?
It comes in as a liquid. It's a liquid,
like a molasses,
but it's a brownish, highly corrosive liquid.
Any further questions, Jim? I'll entertain a motion.
I could read this motion. Move that the commission accept and award the contract for the procurement of bulk ferric chloride to Chimera Water Solutions Incorporated of Lawrence, Kansas. The base year contract prices as submitted in their bid dated January 21st, 2026 per dry ton. Further move that the staff be authorized and directed to sign all documents relating to this contract award, including but not limited to all approved change orders.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? So moved. Mr. Eden.
Thank you, Commissioners. Next item up I have for your consideration is the FY 2026 grinder pump replacement services. The grinder pump replacement project utilizes a contractor to replace aged, worn, or otherwise problematic sewer grinder pump systems to improve reliability, reduce maintenance costs, and reduce sanitary sewer overflow incidents. This project has been going on since 2013, and beginning in fiscal year 2023, the Commission approved additional funding to convert the program from a biennial to a yearly effort to keep pace with aging infrastructures. Sanitary districts 5 and 8 are slated for the majority of the replacement areas of focus this year. This is not a contract award. This request is merely asking to increase the existing purchase order to utilize the services of the contractor that is currently on site. He's currently on site. We have an additional approximately 49 grinder pumps that we'd like to install. So that's what the request is for, is to increase the existing purchase order to not to exceed $700,000. The original purchase order was for $372,000 and some change. So far, we've spent about $280,000 of that money. Since the contractor is here, we would like to just maximize the amount of grinder pumps that we can install this year. This is part of the consent decree. So again, this is what we're asking for. We're asking for an increase of the purchase order to not to exceed $700,000. Again, not a contract award. It's an existing contract that we've awarded. It's just an increase of the purchase order. Any questions?
So when you say install, how many are we replacing versus installing new?
When I say replace, I mean we replace in situ. We replace the entire vault and the pump. It's basically a package. It's a kit that we put in the ground. So it's a self-contained unit, basically. We pull the old one out. It's a fiberglass shell with the pump inside it. All the wires are there. We connect the wires. So that when I say replace, that's what we are replacing. What happens over time is that fiberglass shell actually cracks. Roots start coming in. People drive over the lid with mowers, cars, things like that. So we replace the entire unit. Also, some of the units that we are replacing are obsolete, so we can't get parts for them anymore. So those are also being replaced as part of this project.
But are we installing any new ones? And I don't mean in that same space.
Any new service ones?
Yeah.
For new service?
Yeah.
No, they do not fall under this contract. These are existing, in use, old, obsolete ones. Okay.
How long does a grinder pump typically last before replacement?
Some of these have been in use since the early 80s. So some of them have been installed in the early 2000s. So it's really it's all over the place.
Depends on the environment.
Yeah.
Give them 20.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So that's what I was gonna say, we're on some kind of a plan where we have a 20-year, I guess, plan.
Right.
What happens if somebody runs over one of these with their lawnmowers? That they get charged, or because you're talking about replacing grinder pumps and stuff, but if it's at fault of the
So it's really situational. If accidents do occur, but if it is a repeated issue, we will address it with the homeowner.
These are in residential houses then?
Yes.
Individual,
Yeah.
one grinder pump per house or a
Right.
duplex?
The simplex grinder pumps, that's one single pump. That's a simplex. A duplex pump or pump system, that's two pumps. Those are for commercial buildings. We have replaced a couple duplex units as part of this. All of the 49 that were estimated to go forward here and with this particular request, they are all residential units.
Got it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make it. I move that the commission approve an increase to purchase order 25-00783 in the amount not to exceed $700,000 to Schumer Incorporated of Mayo, Maryland for fiscal year 2026 grinder pump replacement services at the unit prices included in their executed contract number 22-09-F. Further move that staff be authorized and directed to sign all documents relating to this contract award, including but not limited to all approved change orders.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second to the motion. Is there any further questions or discussions? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any nays? So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So just two quick points. There's a follow-up to Sean's presentation. Although it was in your informational memorandum, there was no OPEB contribution funded in FY26 because one was not required. And then also to Commissioner Mattingly's comment, that's especially true now in floodplain. We try to elevate our grinder pumps 4 to 6 inches above the ground surface, which makes them more prone to damage by cars or mowers. So you do raise a good point.
Yeah, I mean that's customer hits the hits a transformer with a lawnmower. I mean as long as it's not damaged, yeah. But when it's damaged, kind of on the customer at that point.
And they're not traffic load bearing.
Yeah.
So when they park on them, that's an issue. If they repeatedly park on them, then that's
Like out in the
problematic.
middle of their yard or out by the edge of their yard.
We try to relocate them whenever possible, but a lot of these
I get
lots,
the lawnmower on occasion, I suppose.
a lot of the lots are tight. There's not a lot of room.
I just put flowers and stuff around mine. So don't run over that with a
They're
lawnmower.
all over. We did the site survey, and there's no real set pattern. Sometimes they're close to driveways.
I'm sorry, you know what's in your yard. Yeah, you should know what's in your yard. So.
Fourth item under new business.
Thank you.
Included in your packages, Commissioners, are two letters and a motion. One is a sample letter of support. The other is a signed letter from James Randy Guy, the President of the Commissioners of St. Mary's County. Metcom's draft legislation for 2026 is moving forward. It now has a House Bill number. It's House Bill 600. It has received support from this board, from the Board of County Commissioners, from the St. Mary's County delegation back in October. Legislation typically sits for a long time and then there's a flurry of activity. What happened was on February 4th, we received a phone call from Legislative Services and said we needed to upload a letter of support. So that sample letter of support in your packages, Chairman Gould actually signed, and we submitted it into the portal.
And George, I actually uploaded that, so they're not seeing the sample any longer. They actually have the signed
Oh,
letter.
perfect. Then you see both of them. Either way, what we wanted to do is avoid future scurrying about and get the commissioners or receive the commissioners' approval for Chairman Gould to sign subsequent letters of support. For example, right now, on February 12th, Delegate Morgan and I provided oral testimony in front of the new Government Labor and Elections Committee. That was on the 12th of February. It will then have a second reading, a third reading, then it'll cross over to the opposite chamber, which is the Senate. It'll have a first reading, a second reading, a third reading. It'll eventually go to the governor, who's scheduled to sign all legislation on April 13th. Legislation such as ours will be effective October 1st. So somewhere between now and April 13th, whatever committee it ends up, may be calling us, asking us for a letter of support. Without letters of support, I'm not saying the bill doesn't go forward. They like to see local letters of support. So the county commissioners will continue to sign letters of support for our bill, and our chairman will also be asked to do the same thing. And what we have is a motion in your packages to allow a letter just like the one you see to go up addressed to a different chairman of a different committee as our House bill passes through the House and the Senate for the rest of the legislative session. It's kind of an administrative motion, but we really didn't make it when we presented the legislation to you, and I just think it's appropriate at this time.
Any questions, gentlemen? Entertain that motion.
I'll make a motion. Thank you, sir. I'd like to move that the commission authorize the chairman to execute letters of support as may be required during the 2026 legislative session of the General Assembly regarding the respective text amendments to Chapter 113 of the St. Mary's County Code, hereinafter referred to as House Bill 600, as proposed by staff and reviewed by this board, the commissioners of St. Mary's County and the St. Mary's County delegation.
I have a motion.
I'll second.
And I have a second to the motion. Any further discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? So moved.
Thank you.
Moving on to continuing business.
First one will go a little faster than the second one. The first item we'd like to discuss today is the capital improvement budget and capital improvement plan. You've seen most of this already. What we're going to ask today is that you authorize us to submit the capital improvement budget package to the Planning Commission. Purpose of the Planning Commission is not to approve the funding, it's not to approve the schedule, it's not to approve the projects in and of themselves. It's simply to relay to the county commissioners that all of the projects we're proposing meet and are in conformance with the comprehensive plan. That's the only purpose. We're going to go through them anyway, but in brief. If you'll recall, back on January 22nd, we made several recommendations, accelerating the Maryland 5 project. I don't want to go through all these in great detail. At the bottom, there's a new recommendation that we had was to determine the adequacy of the 3% escalation factor. Each year we use our current project estimates and we escalate 3% each year. So it's cumulative. At the bottom of pages 6 and 9, slides 6 and 9, you'll see that we also add an 8% capital reserve each year. So between the 3% escalation and the 8% capital reserve each year, we don't think there's a need to increase the escalation factor. If we didn't have that 8% reserve that we calculate at the bottom, I would make a recommendation to change that escalation rate, but I don't think it's necessary at this time. All of our projects are pretty much coming in line with our budgets. Going through the capital project summaries, you've seen each one of these slides. In fact, you saw them at our last meeting. We presented these on January 22nd. The only difference between this slide and the one that you saw before is the Breton Bay water system replacement. Instead of being predominantly funded in 2031, we split it into 2 phases, 2031 and 2032, like we had all the other prior phases. That does a couple of things. One, we can't spend the money that fast. Number 2, it helps smooth out our debt service. Next page, no changes. The only changes we made from last year were the Great Mills Standpipe Extension Project, which we described to you earlier. No changes since January 22nd. Next slide, slide number 6. You'll see on the bottom left the 8% capital reserve I spoke of earlier. Again, no changes other than what was shown in yellow, and you've seen those 2 times before. On the sanitary sewer side, no changes since January 22nd, 2026. Slide number 8, under pump stations, the only change we made is we made an annotation on the bottom left in blue. There's a developer that's proposing some development in the area near Piney Point. The proposal may or may not help reduce that project cost. We're going to keep the full cost in there. There have been several instances where we relied on the developer to come through and lower our costs, so we lowered our budget and the timing wasn't right, and we had to come back and get supplemental funding. So we would rather just not borrow in the future and keep the full funding in there. But we did make that annotation. Bottom of slide 9, bottom left, again, you'll see the 8% capital reserve each year. It's only about $250,000 to $400,000 per year, but it should be enough for any one of the projects if there's a slight overrun. The next slide, I think you saw this back in October of 2025. Since we've had our recent audit, I thought it would be important to talk about our reserves. We have two types of reserves, unrestricted reserves and restricted reserves. Unrestricted reserves are set by policy, and restricted reserves are also set by policy. Restricted reserves, if you're familiar with how the county budgets, are our pay-go monies, and unrestricted reserves are what we call our general fund reserves. If you take the policy limits out and you look at how much reserves we have accumulated, what you basically have is about $15 million of reserve going forward to help fund capital projects. That keeps us from borrowing. I provided these annotations in a memorandum to both this board and the county commissioners. There was one commissioner in particular on the county side that pointed this out, and we made an explanation to him, so I thought it was important to bring it back up to the board during the capital budget presentation. If you go to page 11 of our audit, we've got about $43.54 million in reserves. So if you're going in front of a governing body and asking to borrow $36 to $38 million, the first question might be, why would you want to borrow $38 million when you have $43 million in reserves? Because we have an intended use plan, just like the county has an intended use plan. We have already obligated or committed $6.8 million to the Piney Point wastewater pump station. The bid documents are underway. We already have awarded $6.4 million of reserves as a part of the award to the St. Clement Shores project, which we're waiting for state approval. We committed $302,000 to the county joint project of FDR Boulevard, and another $18.5 million is committed throughout the 5-year planning period. So when you subtract all that out, we're actually below our policy goals, policy targets, assuming we accumulate no additional reserves in the next 6 years, which we will. So we pointed that out in as nice a way as we could, but the point was made, and I think we were able to counter that point. It is always a good question when you're asking to borrow, when you have money on one side of the table. We appreciated the question, maybe not the dialogue that occurred, but it's a very good question, and we need to be in a position to respond to it. There are two ways we recover our capital costs. One is through system improvement charges, which are monthly charges that cover costs of upgrades and replacements. In 2026, we projected that these charges would be as shown on this graph. This was part of our actual budget approval and our public hearing presentation. We've done some quick numbers, and Sean is working on these. That's why he's going to be doing the next presentation next month. We've done some rough calculations, and on the sewer side, it looks like we're going to be just a little bit lower than we projected, which is a good thing. And on the water side, it looks like we'll be slightly higher, maybe 6 cents to 12 cents a month higher than what we projected. That's still pretty spot on, in my opinion. We will finalize those numbers and get back with you at our next meeting. The other way we recoup costs or pay off our debt is capital contribution charges, which are one-time charges to cover costs of projects for extensions of water and sewer lines and wastewater pumping stations. Just to compare, Leonardtown's current capital contribution charge is $24,000 and is projected to be higher than that this year. If you look at our FY26 approved amount, we're only at about $19,000, so we're well below Leonardtown's. We projected a large increase in 2027. That was primarily due to the consent decree projects. We were not allowed in the consent decree to spread those out from left to right, unfortunately, so they're all being done simultaneously in terms of scheduling. That's what resulted in the increase. If we look at our current capital budget as presented, looks like we'll be a little bit less or right on. And our capital contributions for water are going to stay the same. We don't have as many water projects that are expansions or upgrades. So I think we're in good shape on the capital cost recovery side as well. One thing that we have not done yet is completed our debt calculations. We're going to return next time with updated debt calculations. This shows our projections last year through 2031. We'll give you projections through 2032. Metcom still wants to keep a healthy debt margin. We've got over a $40 million debt margin. We want to keep that for an emergency. We don't want to have our debt creep up into that debt margin at all. The basic assumption there is Marley Taylor has an unforeseen accident, has to be completely rebuilt. We have to have the authority and the funding to build it, the authority and the funding authority, the funding ability to be able to afford it. And we can't do that if we chew up that debt margin. There's just no way possible. So it's the rainy day fund, if you will. It's the credit card that is $20,000, but you're not going to spend more than 10. We just have to be judicious each year. If this comes back in an unfavorable light, when we draft this, we're going to move some projects to the right. So we'll bring you back a readjusted capital budget if we see that happening. It also has an impact on our rates and our charges. I hate to be very, very brief with the capital budget. Most of it you've seen. I just wanted to give you some level of comfort on how that's going to impact our charges, which we won't talk about till next month. Again, this is just authority to take the package that you've seen over the past 2 or 3 meetings to the Planning Commission and get them to review. I did want to point out that we're pretty aggressive at retiring our debt. Our average debt retirement is about $7.9 million a year. If you look at our FY25 audit, we retired $7.02 million in debt last year for the FY25 budget. That is all we have on the capital budget. Next steps.
I got a question.
Yes.
So have we now had a chance to dive in more in terms of what our real costs for the consent decree are?
Yes, it's about 34.6 million in projects.
Compared to what we've been carrying budget-wise.
I can break that out. That was the purpose of the orange color on the debt graph, but I can break out the specific numbers.
I guess my question more was, do we have any surprises, or is there any pluses that we maybe are not going to spend 34 million, and we're only really going to spend 30 million, or do we even know that at all?
It'll be based on borrowing in the actual project, so we show all of the debt occurring in that specific year. And what'll happen is as we borrow from left to right, the actual debt will show up. So it'll be staggered. It won't be 34 million at one time, but it shows it and is reflected here at one time.
And of that, what would you say the percentage is due to work that we have to do with grinder pumps and stuff? Roughly.
700,000 a year we spend on the grinder pump project, roughly, compared to the 34 million. So what I would say is the grinder pump project is related to the consent decree because it addresses I&I. It's not a consent decree project. So it's related.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking at where we're talking about where we're going back and raising them and that kind of stuff. We're not applying that towards part of the consent decree cost.
No. Yeah. That's just a policy decision. It's just good practice to keep them elevated in the floodplain.
Yeah, well, my long range question, of course, is gonna be, should we have a different rate for people that are on grinder pumps?
You asked that before.
Yeah.
We addressed that in the rate study, and the answer is legislatively, yes, we could, but legislatively we can't. So we want to address that in the next legislative cycle. If we were like Calvert County, they passed a resolution and gave all their grinder pumps back to the residents. They did that about 3 years ago. It was costing them a lot of money. And that's going to be very difficult to do in this county. So we can look at that again, and we will, because it's on the list to look at. But we don't have the legislative authority. Our charges have to be uniform across the board.
So we totally maintain all that equipment with the grinder pump and all to provide their waste product out. But you say now in Calvert, if my grinder pump goes bad, it's on me.
It is.
So they gave me all the old equipment or new equipment, depending on how long it had been there, but it's now the homeowner's responsibility.
That is correct.
Okay. I didn't know that. I thought it was always part of your homeowner responsibility, but we take care of that equipment here.
That is correct.
Very good. It's good to have a preventive maintenance on them too, rather than people calling and say, you need to come fix your.
The alarms go off at all hours of the day.
I'm sure.
It's a large expense on the capital side and the operating side.
Yeah.
It's painful. We took that over years and years ago. I think we received a large grant to add grinder pumps. So we had a group, and part of the grant was you had to own it in fee simple and maintain it. So you had one side of the fence where we were owning and maintaining and another side that we weren't. The decision was made here to take them over, and legislatively we have that responsibility now. So it's actually written in chapter 113 in the code. It says grinder pumps.
George, do you have any idea how many number of grinder pumps we have in county?
Oh,
I'm not gonna hold you to it, but I'd be curious at some point.
over 2,000.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't
If I had my annual report handy, I'd just, it's right on the back, it's right on the back.
It's out there, yeah.
Or just make up a number, we won't know if it's right or not.
That's right.
We're not gonna know.
No, Laura's got the annual report right there, I'm telling you.
We're not gonna really.
How much does a grinder pump replacement cost? One individual.
None of y'all asked that.
12,000 for the whole unit.
And now these grinder pumps are only used in low areas to pump upward, or just every place doesn't have them, right?
You pump to gravity feed, so if your sewer's down here and your basement's up here, you're in good shape. If your first floor is here and your basement's below, then your basement needs it, only if it has sewer.
Right, I thought it had to have elevation, okay.
So gentlemen, as of the end of December 2025, we had 1,819 grinder pumps, residential owned.
Well, there you go.
2,000.
You were close. You were close.
Oh, he did this.
I like Laura's number better. I don't like to round. I hate, when someone asks for a number, I just, we gotta give them to the penny. But yeah, roughly 2,000. And you take that 20-year cycle, you divide that out, you can see how many were, it's
About
constant,
100 a year, is that what it's scheduled?
50 to 60. Yeah. So we stretch them out.
Yeah, we just approved them to do them, so.
Thank you.
And I'll get that split out of consent decree, just exact numbers if you need them.
Any other questions? I believe there's a motion here. A fiscal motion.
I'll make that motion.
Please.
Move that the commissioner authorize staff to submit the proposed fiscal year 2027 capital improvement budget and the fiscal year 2028 through 2032 capital improvement plan to the St. Mary's County Planning Commission for review.
I have a motion
I'll second that motion.
and I have a second. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? So moved.
Next item is operating budget. This is a draft. We have 3 months to go over the operating budget. This is the 30,000 foot view of the budget. As a follow-up to our October 23rd, 2025 meeting, we set several goals associated with the budget. Those goals were adhering to the administrative assumptions as we presented, to try to come up with a baseline budget within 2% of last year's approved, incorporate a merit and a COLA, and any FTEs, which there will be none this year. Maintain the beneficial suggestions that were incorporated last year. Implement the rate study recommendations, which will be on slides 15 and 16. Include a public hearing reserve of 1 to 2%, which is what we do every year. And project any fiscal impacts of any new additional mandates that may be coming our way. We always like to look to the past and have tried not to over budget, either on the expense or revenue side. We feel comfortable when we hit the 95% or above mark in terms of efficiency. So just giving you some history since 2020, our actual expenditures versus our approved budget, we're very close to being in line with what our budget projections are. If you look at 2024, 2025, and 2026, the difference between the approved budget and the actual expenditures ends up being just the Commissioner's Emergency Reserve. So we do expend almost all of our budget. There's not a lot of, I'd hate using the word fluff, but we don't overinflate. We try to be as close as we can with our estimating. Down at the bottom of the page, you'll notice there are 3 different projections for where we might sit in 2026. If we take 95% of our approved budget, we would anticipate expending $19.563 million this year. If you take our mid-year review, which is all of our costs through December 31st, multiplied by 2, that's a simple way to do that. Looks like we may expend about $20.48 million. Interestingly enough, we just finished a rate study. Rate study projected our actual cost would be $20.5 million. That's pretty close to $20.44. So we feel pretty comfortable going forward that we can bring in a budget that's somewhere in that neighborhood. That's the expense side. Revenue side is no different. You go back in time, look at the history. In most cases, we received a little bit more revenue than we anticipated, but not overly so. That's a good thing. At the bottom again are projections. If you look at 95% efficiency, 19.5 million in revenues should be received this year. If you look at our mid-year review multiplied by 2, you're about, again at 19.5. You look at your approved budget, that's 20.5. It looks like we're short. Revenues are not as linear as expenses. Revenues fluctuate a lot. We receive usually more revenues in the spring than we do the fall. Nonetheless, your revenues have to match your expenditures, and that's what the rate study did for us. I prefer to look at budgets side by side, expenses and revenues side by side. So graphically, if you go back to 2016, we are narrowing the gap, if you will, between revenues and expenditures, which is a good thing. It wouldn't be unreasonable if you use a linear trend line, which is the most appropriate for the type of budgets that we have. Wouldn't be unreasonable to project an FY27 budget having expenses of $20.9 million and revenues of $21.3 million. And again, that's without looking at individual account and line items. Interestingly enough, independent of this analysis, we did do the rate study, and the rate study projected a 20.89, a $20.891 million expenditure for FY 2027, or a budget. We're projecting 20.6, very close. I feel good about the rate study. I feel good about these projections. The one thing that you will note, on the bottom where the legend is, it's hard to read on the bottom left in green. That's the linear formula, y equals mx plus b for us engineering nerds. And on the right-hand side is the expenditure. The expenditure slope, if you will, is a little bit steeper than the revenue side. That's not something that you want. You don't want them to be divergent, but you don't want them to cross either. We saw that this was occurring, and that's why we did the rate study. The rate study was intended to make sure those lines stay parallel so that they don't cross in the future. And speaking of the rate study projected expenses all the way out past 2031, all the way out to 2036. It's a really, really nice model. Water expenses are projected to increase between 2026 and 2036 by about 5.3%, and sewer expenses are projected to increase between 2026 and 2036 by 5.1%. Overall expenses are expected to increase by about 5.1% per year. And what you will note is sewer expenses just in this industry are typically 2 to 2.5 times more than water. Why? Because sewer expenses include both water consumption and water treatment. So you would expect them to be a little bit more. Included in the baseline budget. This was all presented back to you it was October 23rd of last year. We talked about the oyster revitalization effort. We donated, we put aside $10,000 a year to the Potomac River Fisheries Commission to plant oysters wherever they deem appropriate. We have implemented full fleet tracking telemetrics. I call it telemetry. We have a small capital contribution connected incentive program for water connections, and we limited that to folks with financial hardship to help them connect to our public water lines. And we have an I&I mitigation loan fund program, which is an incentive for residential customers. When we identify that they have issues on their private side, if they can't afford it, they can get a loan through us. And I can tell you that getting a loan through us is the prevailing interest rate plus 1%. They could probably do better. Nonetheless, we will offer that to folks that are having financial hardship. There are no new FTEs proposed in 2027. The merit increase is 2.7%, COLA is 2%. We're going to introduce the rate study recommendations. We'll talk about it a little bit later. It just simply introduces a 10,000 gallon per month intermediate tier. Our current tier structure is 0 to 5,000 is the first rate, 5 to 20, extremely large gap. It simply introduces an intermediate 10,000 gallon tier. Goes from 10 to 20 and then 20 and above, just like our old tiered program did. And also we included all of our applicable benefits, payroll, tax contributions, overhead contributions, etc. We go through a process called essential cost changes. There's a form called an ECC form. It has to pass the litmus test with justification. You can't just say we need $5,000 more. It doesn't work that way. You've got to be able to justify it. We go through a process where we look at prior expenditures, opportunities for realignment within, any cost savings in other accounts. We eliminate one-time costs. One of the tricks of the trade is to have a one-time cost this year and sort of roll that amount over to the next year. We flag those every year so that doesn't happen. What you don't see on this sheet is the $119,000 that didn't make the table. We've already vetted all the forms that came in from all the departments, and we've already eliminated. So basically, we've cut the request in half based on the internal vetting as I described it. So Sean and I go through all the requests, and if they need 10,000 and they've only spent 8 out of 10 the prior year, you don't get the full time. That's just how we go. So laboratory supplies for our northern plants need an additional $7,800. Our NeoGov program, which is a human resources application, that's just hardware subscription or software subscriptions. Vehicle maintenance and repair, our sewer grinder pump vehicle. Water station repairs, we have 52 water stations, $15,000 for 52 stations is not a lot. We're doing internal budget amendments. I hate internal budget amendments, but they're required throughout the year. When you see the same internal budget amendments 3 years in a row, you finally realize that you should just up that budget. So we did that for the water station and our material and contractor fee increases. There are 2 items shown in red that are actual permit regulatory mandates. One is sludge influent biotoxicity testing. They're requiring us to test our sludge for PFAS now. It is a mandate. It's nothing we can do. Likewise, on the water side, we're required to do PFAS testing. If Ed were here, we have volunteered to do PFAS testing. The state has asked us to be a guinea pig. We volunteered on the water side and on the sewer side, and we have non-detects on both the influent and effluent side. So we're very pleased about that. You run the risk when you raise your hand to be in line, but if someone else can spend their money on testing, we'll go ahead and let them do that. But now it's become a mandate, and that will impact us next year. Fire hydrant painting and inspections and flow testing, an additional $7,000. So the recommended increases are 0.6 of what was approved last year as far as essential cost changes. So we've come way down in terms of requests. About $115,000 of additional requests this year. What was that, 50, 58, 60,000 of it, almost half was mandated. We also are considering requesting that the board reduce their emergency reserve to 1% instead of 2%. As we discussed on the first slide, not the first slide, slide number 4. In 2024, we had, or 2023, we had $597,000 of unspent reserves. In 2024, we budgeted $390,000. We didn't spend that. Those were all 2% numbers. In 2025, $182,000, and in 2026, $412,000. We haven't used those in 4 years. Maybe 1% is sufficient. We have 3 months to decide whether we want to do 1 or 2%. I still like 2%, but if we can get it down to 1%, I think it would behoove us to do that. The next 3 slides, they're just a series of 3 slides. This is our rolling small capital equipment replacement program. These purchases are typically less than $100,000 and are capitalized, recorded as an asset, and expended through depreciation. Several years ago, we established what we call a reasonable range of 15 to 20% of the total depreciation recorded each year, which is about $3.1 million. So when the capital equipment requests come in, if they're anywhere between $400,000 and $600,000, that's reasonable. If they're not, we prioritize them and stretch them out so that we don't exceed about $500,000 per year. As we scroll through each one of the departments, you'll see that our total this year is $509,000 worth of requests. You would have seen this last year because we always provide 3 years of a rolling small equipment purchase program. And this is just the second year of those 3 years. Next year, you'll see 27, 28, and 29. The replacements, if you hadn't asked already, the replacements are based on age, mileage, engine use, or engine hours use, the ability to repurpose. A lot of times we can repurpose. There are some times where we actually just purchase the wrong size equipment. That doesn't happen that often. And if we can right size, we will, but we won't right size before we get the useful life out of what we already purchased. put three quotes on the bottom just for our folks. You know, the best investment is the tools of one's own trade. That was a Benjamin Franklin quote. Give us the tools and we'll finish the job. That's Winston Churchill. And technology is nothing. What's important is that you have faith in people and they're basically good and smart. And if you give them the tools, they'll do wonderful things with them. They're just three of my favorite quotes. They have nothing to do with your approval of the budget. There were some legislative impacts not included. We have to track these constantly. They come up out of nowhere. They're introduced usually by Baltimore City, the ones that really impact us a lot. We fortunately belong to MAMWA. It's a Maryland Water Association. They have an entire team. In fact, they have a firm called Aqua Law that tracks every single water and sewer project. Water and sewer legislative proposal. And they send us legislative updates. They have special sessions. We talk with them online. We help them with their position papers, and they represent a large body of our public water and sewer utilities. So Metcom never has to send a letter, nastygram to the delegation or to the House or to the Senate or to the governor. This local group does that for us, or this regional group does that for us. There were four in particular we were tracking. The Family Medical Leave Insurance Act, Anne Marie has talked about that before. That's going to impact us about $35,000 a year. That was once again delayed, so we'll talk about that next year. There's an HB 925, SB 719, and for those who aren't tracking, HB is House bill and SB is Senate bill. That's proposed to be effective 10/1/2027. That's an FY28 item, so we'll talk about that next year. That could have a $355,000 impact. What that basically means is the sludge that we produce at Marley Taylor, about 4,800 to 5,100 tons a year, will no longer be able to be land applied. It'll have to be landfilled. Take the difference in cost between those two, it's about $300,000, $400,000. That's a big deal. Hopefully that'll get deferred once again. What just came up within the last 2 weeks is Senate Bill 566. It was raised by Harford and Cecil counties. Senator Gallion representing those two jurisdictions. What it would basically do is infuse the Public Service Commission into our business and start giving them the authority to dictate how our revenues and expenses are commingled and cap us on our ability to set rates. That's very problematic. We had the Aqua Law folks look into it, and on February 10th, they got clarification for us because the bill, I think Chris Beaver read the bill too, we could not tell. They got clarification for us on behalf of actually all of our industries, and it was determined that it would not impact local authorities or sanitary commissions such as ourselves. They were for the for-profit groups, the smaller private companies. That was important because it also resulted in a change in language in the legislation so that it was clear. So we're tracking that every day. Again, we're on our first read in our House bill, and there's 2 more to go there and 3 more reads. Legislation is being introduced every single day. So we will keep you up to speed on all of that. So operating budget formulation, again, this is the 30,000 view. We typically start off, not like most folks. A lot of folks start off with last year's approved budget. We never do that. We start off with what we believe would be our expenditures. We compare our 95% efficiency target with our mid-year estimate. And when you're looking at expenses, you typically want to expense high. So we used our mid-year estimate as a start. It was $20.48 million. We added those essential cost changes from the prior slide number 9. We added the new MDM permit requirements that were also on slide 9. There were no new FTEs. When you sum total that up, you're at $20.595 million, which is only 0.01% above last year's approved budget. You add your merit of 2.7 and your COLA of 2%. You're at $21.1 million, which is 2.5% above the approved budget. I would say that baseline is pretty close to 2% above last year's approved. Wanted to point out to the commissioners that we use a 2% vacancy rate. In other words, we're not fully funding our operating costs in terms of personnel. We are never fully staffed. a normal budget would have a fully funded staff. We have historically, at one point in time, we had a 3% vacancy rate. That we found out that was a little too high. We keep fairly full. We have positions rotating out all the time, so we factor in a 2% vacancy rate. So our budget is actually a little bit lower than it would be if you were in county government. So when you add those together, we're about 2.5% above last year's approved budget. We're suggesting a 1% reserve, which would, again, it's not putting the budget anywhere. It's setting the stage for a potential submission of a budget somewhere in the neighborhood of 21.3 million. If you look at the rate study estimated 21.308 million. Again, that rate study was independent of this analysis. Looks like we're very close to a consultant that we had analyze all of our finances over the past 5 years. So I feel pretty comfortable going forward. We can bring in a budget that's somewhere around 2% over last year's. And we'll go through that over the next 2 months, line by line if you'd like. We'll bring every single line item in for your review. That's the expense side. And of course, on the revenue side, you have to have the matching piece. And on the revenue side, we said we wanted to implement a rate study. The study found, as you will recall, that revenues collected at the current rates were not sufficient to cover the revenue requirements throughout the next 5-year planning period. Back to our linear model, eventually the expense line is going to cross the revenue line, so this rate study precludes that from happening. Those shortfalls were anticipated as early as 2027. Current rate structure relies on a broad middle tier. We talked about that 5,000 to 20,000 gallon middle tier, which doesn't adequately distinguish between a typical residential user and a higher user. It also limits the rate design ability to align charges with observed use patterns. What it does do is it better differentiates customer usage by introducing an intermediate tier of 10,000 gallons per month. It supports conservative objectives, reduces cross-subsidization, it enhances transparency, and incorporates an assumed monthly use of 6,000 gallons per EDU for non-metered customers. Our current budget used an EPA model of 7,000. When we looked at our actual usage, it's more like 5,860 gallons per household. So the non-metered customers will actually see a lower rate than they saw last year. So we think that's a good thing and also the right thing to do. You may not recall because it's been a long time. Back in September and October, we presented the rate study structure to you. And if you look at what's boxed out on the screen, it's not actually boxed out on your screens, but it is boxed out on the screen. Our current rate structure is $10.82 for a typical residential monthly rate. It's proposed to increase to $11.03, which is 21 cents a month. If you look at the non-metered charge, which is about halfway down the page, it's now based on 6,000 gallons per EDU, not 7,000. So they'll actually see a lowering of their monthly charge from $20.52 to $17.15, which we think is reasonable. Notice the tier 1 charges, 0 to 5,000 gallons will go from $1.94 to $1.96. That's only a 2-cent increase. That is 75% of our customers. The tier 2, which is 5,000 to 10,000 gallons, would go from $3.89 to $2.94. That's 95 cents lower. That's another 16% of our customers. Then the tier 3 and the tier 4, where you see it elevated, because the goal is to, I hate to use the word penalize, to disincentivize use that approaches the higher level, and then the 20,000, which is excessive. The old multipliers, if you recall, were 1 times or 2 times to go to the second tier, 4 times to the third tier. Now it goes from 1 to 1.5 times, because that's fairly reasonable considering irrigation. Then it goes to 3 times and then 4.5 times. So 9% of the customers who use higher than normal volume may be aggrieved. But as a general rule, the customers should be fairly pleased with this new rate structure. On the sewer side,
Are most of those commercial?
most of those are residential, very, very few commercial, very few commercial. Very low volume, very low number. Sewer side, likewise for the sewer side, because sewer costs more than water. Our current rate structure is 21.14, and our FY '27 proposal is $22.19. That's $1.05 more a month. And you'll notice the non-metered charge, again, based on 6,000 gallons, not 7, would drop from $49.87 to $47.18, so it's a little bit less. Graphically, the consultant did something that was sort of nice. We asked them to do this, which is shown on slide 18. Approximately 97% of all bills fall below 13,000 gallons per month and should experience either the same or a little bit lower of an impact. The current rate structure would have increased all of our rates 2.7 and 2.1%. Now, after this adjustment in 2027, we'll see 5% increases, for the subsequent years. But this is the first initial adjustment of working the new rate structure in, which I think should go fairly smooth.
So you don't think we should try to take that and, if the rest of them are gonna be 5%, whether we should raise that to make it a little more uniform even for that this year?
That's part of what we will be looking at when we bring it back to you. This was the results of the rate structure as it was presented to us.
I mean, people with change, that, rather, like, all of a sudden you're giving back 2 cents and then all of a sudden you're asking for 10, whatever, I'm making up numbers, obviously, you're gonna ask for 10 cents, and are you better off?
If you go to,
So they're only asking for 5 cents, whatever the number average is.
to Commissioner Dugan's point, if you go back to 1994, this is shown on slide 24, it was put in there purposely. When you try to hold your rates, when it comes time to change, it's a big jump. When you try to hold your rates and it's time to change, it's a big jump. If you can gradually raise them, you're in better shape. Here's the issue that we have. Chapter 113 requires us to charge what we calculate our costs to be. So it's a little harder to do that in our world than it is on the private side, if that makes any sense.
Well, it doesn't say that your charges have to be per that minute.
No.
Your charges could be looked at, that is our charges for the next 4 years.
That is correct. That is correct. But to your point, any increase, if you don't increase it by a lot the next year, if you're going from a 2% to a 5%, wouldn't it be better to do 3 each year? Probably so. Probably so. And we'll bring that back, absolutely. But as it stands now, the 30,000 view of what the budget may look like when we bring it to you, and the revenue that substantiates that or offsets that is in sync with the rate study. So these two pieces just came together for the first time, and now we'll put all the detail together that goes with it.
And the last one is probably just have in our back pocket for sometime when we're having discussions with the county is, how much is our percentage lower than Leonardtown's?
I would say our rates are, I don't want to say significant, our rates are higher. Our capital contribution charges are lower. It's how you choose to fund it. But I can get you those exact numbers.
I just in general have heard that their overall billing is higher than ours. And
Their charge per 1,000 gallons is lower. They are much more condensed than we are. I don't know if you remember when we introduced the report card to you, we had a report card and there were two items in red. One was, what are your operating costs? And you're a little bit high, but when you look at our operating cost per 100 miles of asset, we're in great shape. So Leonardtown is a nice compact unit, therefore their costs are significantly less. So their monthly charges are, I want to say significantly, it's probably about half. I just looked at those last week, but I'll bring those back in. It's always good to compare. You know, it's easier to compare with Leonardtown than it is Calvert, Cecil, Hartford, PG. We can give you numbers that are significantly higher and make ourselves look good, but Leonardtown is probably a good comparison. It will do that. And there's no motion. This is just level of comfort going forward. Not trying to be aloof, but that's kind of where we are. Probably didn't even have to do this presentation.
Trying to keep my mouth shut, but I'm not very good at it.
No, we don't want you to come in the next time and have those comments. We'd rather bring those into you. Because the next one is just going to be extremely detailed, line by line by line, and you may not have any questions. So comparison to Leonardtown, that would be one. And your other question was,
Was looking more, should we average more over the.
right, averaging. And then we'll just break out the consent decree projects in a little more detail, just so you can see that. It'd be nice to have a separate, line, consent decree impact, tacked onto the bill, but I don't think that's necessary. It'd be good to know what it is, though.
Anybody else got any questions? George and Sean?
Sean's gonna have the hard one next time.
Yeah. All right, then, hearing nothing, we'll move on to future agenda items. Next tentative meeting date's gonna be March 26th of 2026. We'll move into commissioners' members' time. Anybody got anything? Commissioner side? I'd just like to say outstanding work as usual when it comes to the budget. I know it's long hours, tedious project to get done. It seems as when we approve one, we're already getting deep into the next. It's like a never-ending cycle of viciousness as it rolls around. So, but y'all do outstanding work, you and the whole team. So I'm sure it's not just one individual. Sure, there's plenty of team members that help out with that, so doesn't mean we're giving you a raise, just.
Well, if there weren't 42 revenue sources, it'd be a little easier.
Truth. Anybody got anything else?
Thank you.
Yep. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss litigation.
I will make that motion to go into executive session to discuss litigation.
And
I'll do a second on that.
And I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Nay? We're now moving to executive session.
We just can't wait.
Okay, guys, we're back into regular session. I need that motion to approve what was discussed in executive session.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion to approve what was discussed in.
You'd like staff to proceed as discussed.
And we would like staff to proceed as discussed in our closed session.
And I need a second.
I'll second.
We can't discuss it any further, so all those in favor?
Aye.
And nays?
Nay.
Yeah.
We have 5 yays, 2 nays. And it is so moved. I also need a motion to approve the executive session meetings from January 22nd, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the January 22nd, 2026 meeting.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? So moved. And a motion for adjournment. Unless anybody's got anything else to say, by the way. I'll take that motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Not hearing any nays, so moved. Gentlemen, thank you.
Two nays, that's for-
Sorry to take away the fun.